I almost was. I said, don't let him on unless he goes and dresses up. You would have had something in a closet or something that you could have put on. What did you say, Kellen?
He's got to have a set of ski goggles from last night's celebration, at least.
World Series celebration.
I mean, I don't let the cat out of the bag. Are you dressed up as a degenerate gambler? Is that what you are right now?
No, you're the second person that said don't say. You text me, but I'll let you know right. No, it's second person that said that one. That is not correct. I wouldn't have to dress up for that.
You need a couple of photos of you and I on the shirt if that was going to be the case.
What was trick-or-treating like out in the Maritimes there as a kid? Like, what we were going through some of the candy, some of the garbage can. What is the one, Colson, that you can still buy at Giant Tiger allegedly Crofty sent in, and a couple people?
Molasses Kisses. Cares Molasses Kisses.
Molasses?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember those? Orange wrapping?
They were awful. Those were the worst. The coolest people had the cans of pop. Like, if you got a can of pop from somebody, those people were living large.
Yeah.
You know?
And like legit brand pop, not like RC Cola or Pick a Pop or whatever else we had. You had PC Choice. No free plugs. Yeah, no. That was, and then just if you're 6, 7, 8 years old and you get that big bag of chips or that big candy bar, that's like going to Vegas. At that age, like that that makes you smile. And then I really love picking through my kids' candy tonight, but they're getting a little bit older, especially they're very wise, and hands down every year between Mrs. S and I and the kids, I don't know how long, like December, second week of December, there'll still be remnants of candy in their boxes, and it's always Wonder Bar and any kind of Mars bar. No one in the house likes it. Those will ride. Those will ride the 4, 5, 6 weeks. No one will touch them. I'll end up going, where you can, if you don't, here's a tip out there. If you have extra candy or you're not going to do anything for candy, take them to a senior's home. And look at Colson's face. Take him to a senior's home, and they use them, when they play bingo, they use them as prizes.
Mini Mars bars?
Anything. Wonder bars. See, I don't even know.
Bingo. Yeah. You get yourself a 3-month-old mini Mars bar.
I don't even know if the elderly like Wonder bars and Mars bars. When's the last time you were at an old age home, Kellen?
October 2015, before my grandfather died.
I'm serious. They love it for the bingo, and they use them for prizes.
You know what? I think bingo halls, they prefer money over candy, but
these aren't bingo halls. These are old age homes.
What's the difference?
Remember what Randy Moss said? Straight cash, homie.
What's the difference between that? That's what we're dealing with here on the Sports Cage of one of our producers out there in Sports Cage land. He doesn't know the difference between a bingo hall and an old age home.
Smoking or non-smoking.
It is. It's a wild. This is a wild place here at 12th and Rose. Where do you want to start? I want to start Major League Baseball since Kellen brought it up. Dodgers last night pull it out. Yankees blow a 5-0 lead. Two expensive baseball teams. Really though, I watched it passively. Ohtani and Judge, they were just there in this series, right?
Well, let's start with Ohtani, because it would have been really interesting if the Yankees had won last night, if Ohtani plays Game 6 and Game 7. Because remember, it was in Game 2 that he's sliding into second base. His shoulder came out of socket, and he tried to fight the good fight for a couple of games. By the end, Barney, he was just a liability. Then last night, finally, Judge snaps out of it, hits the huge home run, and then they're up 5-0. And there's a runner on, and it's a routine fly ball to center, and Judge takes his eye off the ball for reasons we'll never know, wants to see the runner, and he drops it. And the next thing you know, 5-zip turns into 5-5 on 5 unearned runs. Unless Aaron Judge wins 2, not 1, 2 championships, that is going to haunt him in the New York sports conversation for the rest of his career, and probably post-career too.
Freddie Freeman, did he make a name for himself? And I know there's a lot of confusion that he's Canadian. He is not. He's born in California. His parents are Canadian, right? And his mom passed away. Arash, just quickly get our people up to speed on him.
Well, first of all, Freddie Freeman, this may have just put him into the Hall of Fame, Barney.
Whoa.
Like, we're talking now about a 2-time World Series champion, an NL MVP when he was with Atlanta, a World Series MVP. He's on track for 2,500 hits. He could even get to 3,000. And he becomes the second player in World Series history to have 4 home runs in a fall classic. But yeah, like, you're talking about one of the best players in the game today, and he's doing all this on a bum ankle. But yeah, his parents were born in Canada. Mom's from outside Peterborough, Ontario. And when Freddie was 10, his mom, Rosemary, passed away from melanoma. And so to continue to pay tribute to her, that's why he wears the long sleeves, to raise awareness for that form of cancer. But in back-to-back World Baseball Classics now, he plays for Canada as a tribute to Mom. And it means a lot to him to do that. He does anything and everything possible to keep Rosemary's memory alive. And he had a great line last night as Fernando Valenzuela passed just before the World Series. He said, Fernando and Mom are having a heck of a time watching this together up there. So just an amazing run for Freddie Freeman.
And Arash, obviously, in this circumstance, like, Freddie Freeman's going to continue to play for Canada, but from what you know, is there like a similar circumstance to hockey where, like, once you've played internationally for a country, you remain part of that country, sort of like the Brett Hall playing for US whole thing, or is that something that exists only in IIHF?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I know in the soccer sphere, once you're cap tied is what they call it, it's really tough to kind of switch. But most guys don't even think about it. There are very few scenarios where players will go to, represent a different country. Like Rowdy Tellez, former Blue Jay, who was with Pittsburgh last year, he played for Mexico, even though he was kind of born and raised in Sacramento. He just wasn't going to make Team USA. So it's a good question, Kellen. I don't know the answer for baseball, but there aren't many scenarios in which that would actually be a thing.
Let's move over to CFL football. Like, what do you make about this weekend's matchup here, Riders and Lions?
It's funny, Barney. I was trying to think of a different angle to come at it with. So I texted a few people around the league who aren't involved, not only in this matchup, but not involved in the West playoffs at all this year. And I said, if you were Corey Mace, what would you do against BC? Because there's so many different ways the Lions can come at you with Vernon Adams, and you think about their run game with a veteran running back and the rest, and obviously McGinnis is a heck of a receiver. And I thought one of the most interesting things that one offensive-minded coach came back at me with, he said, if I'm Mace, I'm going to make them run the ball against a light box. Because if you're able to kind of contain that, then you're going to stop BC's quick game on first down and keep them in second and long. Like, we get so caught up in Vernon Adams, and understandably so. And of course, because the receiving core has some firepower. But I think that if Saskatchewan is able to really stop the Lions' run game, that changes the entire dynamic of this football game on Saturday. And I thought that was a really interesting way of kind of presenting it through a coach's lens who's faced both teams, knows the personnel on both teams in terms of what the Riders may want to do.
Yeah, it's. I'm so curious. The Vernon Adams thing, right? Like, it's. We talked about it a number of times. It's like Nathan Rourke, and how isn't he? We have Glenn Suter coming on in a bit here. I don't know if he's kind of backed off that in the last couple of months, where if he had a chance to play in the States, he'd be a Pro Bowler. I don't know about that. but the rust. And then now he came in here a few weeks ago, didn't look very good. Lions didn't look very good. Vernon Adams, like, he just can create so much with his feet and then throw it downfield. And then we've talked football. It's almost like the old Russell Wilson days. Create stuff with your feet, move around, throw it up, lock it. Oh, pass interference, if nothing else. Right? That's the thing that scares me about him, Arash.
Yeah, and that's fair, Barney. And I know for those on the stream right now, you're taking a look at Vernon Adams run around and throw the football and all those things. Great. Here's the thing about BC, which has unarguably been the case, that for the majority of this season, their defense has been trash. It has leaked oil. It has not been able to stop anybody. Look, if Trevor Harris comes out and plays the type of ball that Trevor Harris has played the last few weeks, it is so advantage Saskatchewan here. So Vernon's a piece of this equation. There's no question. The Sask defense is a piece of this equation. But if the Riders come out clicking on offense, and I love the attitude that AJ Ouellette brings, saying, okay, forget the blonde hair look. I'm going back to the look of a couple of years ago in Toronto. This is my postseason demeanor. I think you and I have talked about this earlier this season. To me, Ouellette is going to be such an important part of the Riders' pass game. We get so caught up in running backs carrying the load. Out of the backfield, Ouellette is an absolute offensive weapon that Harris is going to rely upon.
Yeah, and you just led me down that road I was headed to anyway, and I was going to mention it earlier with Dave Thomas, is how important is the experience that AJ Ouellette's had the last number of years with the Argos, and what is his health situation like? He's sort of been on and off. He played the last few weeks. He didn't play in the final week a week ago. And how important is having the depth with Frankie Hickson and just sort of having the ability to show different things on offense with what you've talked about with BC's ineptness on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him from Ouellette's standpoint is, and I know it's been a couple of weeks since he played, ironically it was against BC the last game, but we're talking about a guy who had 18, 19 touches in that game. I'm looking it up here. 16 runs, 2 receptions. That's somebody who can absolutely carry the mail for you. And what it also does, Kellen, it totally wears down your defense. I'm not comparing the two at all. Okay, I'm not comparing them. But when Baltimore went on its 5-game win streak, the last game they won, Derrick Henry had 1 carry going into the fourth quarter, and he finished with something like 160 rushing yards. Because in the fourth quarter, when your defense is wiped, and I don't know what the weather forecast is, but if it gets cold and it starts to hurt when you have to tackle people, and AJ Ouellette's coming downhill on you, that's a freight train coming at you. So, man, I just think that he can be a real X factor in this football game.
Let's shift to the Alberta capital. What do you know about Chris Morris?
So Chris Morris, who gets the president and CEO job of the Edmonton Elks, it's one of the different career trajectories.
Yeah.
Here's a dude who played for a while as an O-lineman, won a couple of championships in their heyday. I think 2005 against Montreal, that overtime classic. Then he was a teacher, Barney. And then he became a principal. And then he went and coached the Alberta Golden Bears for 10, 12 years. And now he's the president and CEO of the Elks. So I started kind of sniffing around today because I'm like, wait a minute, is getting an education degree the ticket to running a pro football franchise?
Yes, my wife's in then. Perfect. Let's go.
Yeah.
Moving. Arizona.
If you and I were going to bet on this, the clubhouse favorite going in was Sean Fleming. Sean Fleming was a longtime player. He kicked for Edmonton back in the day. Has been fully involved with the board in the business community. There were a lot of people who thought that Fleming was going to get this job.
Just to clarify, to clarify for people in Regina, not the absolute legend, former Regina Pat Kindersley Clipper that's now an eye doctor.
Optometry to CEO is not a path teacher to
the CFL
CEO.
Sean Fleming.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Continue.
The CFL Sean Fleming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just told, look, Chris Morris basically came from the outside lane and overtook Fleming on a photo finish. And, you're talking about a guy who's a leader, who knows the football community, who's got the double E DNA. He's a local guy. I wonder how much of this Rick Lallisher is going to still remain an alternate governor, how much Lallisher still wants to pull some of the strings. But it was an interesting hire that caught a lot of people across the league. And even with Elks, Edmonton, double E connections, it even caught them off guard too.
What do you make about things down in Calgary? I'm surprised they got rid of the coaches after saying Dickinson's back. I thought they were all gonna run it back, or whatever the opposite of run is.
Yeah, I mean, backpedal into nowhere. That's what the Stamps have been doing. Look, how many times have you seen this before that coaches that assistant coaches become the scapegoat so the head coach can keep his job?
Yeah.
Now, this is where I find this whole staff cap and the whole lateral movement rules and all this BS just so wrong. So Corey Mace gets the Ryder job last year. He wanted to bring Mark Killam with him. Mace and Killam won a Grey Cup as members of the Calgary Stampeder staff. And Dave Dickinson blocked that a year ago from Killam getting not only a chance to work in a different organization, but a pay raise and a little more security with a multi-year contract. And here we are a year later, and Dave whacks Killam. It's just not right. It's a little dirty pool. Of all the people, Dave Dickinson knows better, should do better. What's interesting in all this is we just talked about Chris Morris. Mark Killam is a University of Alberta Golden Bears alum. Could Mark Killam end up as the next head coach at the U of A? We'll see.
Yeah, he's put in his time. I talked about it yesterday. The only reason I remember him is like 20 years, and he's had that same curly hair on the sideline. I'm like, that guy's been there a long time.
And by the way, just one last thing. Brent Johnson, who's the defensive coordinator in Calgary, he also got clipped yesterday.
Yeah,
I fully expect him to be on the Argonauts coaching staff next year.
Quickly, what do you think? Do you think Toronto comes out against Ottawa, and then it's Toronto Montreal there? We got about 30 seconds.
I do. Yeah, I do. I think one of the things that what may very well drive this game is special teams. The Argos had basically run Ottawa out of the gym a couple of weeks ago, and then the Red Blacks had the kick return for a touchdown. They recovered a couple of onside kicks. Special teams will play a big part of all this. What's interesting, Barney, I talked to somebody who was in the Argos meeting room, and they told me the message the players got was just play loose. It's just another game. There's still some ghosts of what happened in the East Final against Montreal last year. They just want to make sure the guys aren't tight coming into this one.
It's Halloween. I don't know if a lot scares you. I'm still disappointed you didn't dress up in a costume, but I'm
going to go buy myself a Mars bar.
Does Joe Flacco scare you this weekend?
Yes,
your Vikings.
More than Anthony Richardson. More than Anthony Richardson scares me. How about that? The line goes from Minnesota -7 to -5, a 2-point swing after that news.
So good. All right, we're saying go Riders over here. We want to see them play the Winnipeg Blue Bombers next week, and then we can have fun and chat about that. Always a pleasure, Arash. Have a good Halloween.
You too. Thanks, boys.